I look bold. Hello guys, how you doing? Stave 4 today, which is the last of the spirits. So we've just had present coming in and leaving again, because obviously present is ongoing, etc, etc. Now it's the time of Christmas yet to come. So it's not the ghost of Christmas future, it's the ghost of Christmas yet to come. One of the first things we notice from the end of Stave 3 actually as well, to be fair, is that this one is referred to as a phantom. Now, spirit, phantom, ghost, they are all interchangeable technically. You know, they all mean the same thing, but the connotations of phantom are a bit different. You know, it seems more powerful, it seems more ominous, it seems darker. And that is clearly shown in this first one. Look, the first sentence. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. That asyndetic list. It's slowly, gravely, and silently approaching him. Yeah? There's no long introduction to him now. That's it. That's all we're getting, because it's almost as if time is running out. Yeah? For both Scrooge and for us, that it needs to kind of, the pace needs to quicken now, because there are more important things to do than understand how, you know, how Scrooge came across this thing. In the last stave, all it says is that the bell struck 12, and then he lifts up his eyes and he sees the phantom, and that's it. There's no kind of big dramatic scene where he opens the door, or, you know, where he sees this blinding light or anything. Nothing like that happens for this one. So throughout this stave, we do get actually a lot of darker language and a much darker semantic field. So straight away we can think about the future seems pretty dark for Scrooge. He doesn't seem to have kind of collected onto that yet, but again, it's not about him, it's about us, and we're the ones reading Dickens' language. But we also learn in this one that this spirit does not speak. There is no dialogue from the ghost at all. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with its hand. So it's this huge dark cloak, and all it's got is this hand that points out. There's no conversation, there's no support, there's no clarity, it's just referencing, just pointing. Think about what that means. Scrooge can no longer ask for help. He can no longer ask for answers. He has to work it out on his own, really. It's now become like a self-awareness journey for him. That someone points at something and he has to work out what it means and how it matters to his story. So we see this one's really affecting Scrooge compared to the others. Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him and found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it. So he tries to stand up in this thing. Think about that wording there as well. Silent shape. That sibilance there. Not even this world. It's supernatural. It's just a shape that we as mortals could not even comprehend what this thing actually is. It's just a silent shape. But Dickens is reminding us it's silent. Not saying a thing. Again, just pointing. That's a good little point, wasn't it? I think another thing to think about here is, what even is a ghost? You know, people say, oh, I saw a ghost. And I'm like, well, what is a ghost? And they say, oh, you know what a ghost is. And I'm like, I can't actually, no, I don't. Like, if you think about it, what does spirit even mean? We know what it abstractly means, but if you say, what is a ghost? What is a spirit? What is any of this stuff? There isn't really an answer. There's no actual demonstrable ideas there. I mean, obviously, because ghosts don't exist. There's no kind of way of describing them other than just a thing. There's this kind of idea that we've got from literature and from films and from stories, but we don't really have an idea. And it's probably that's Dickens is playing on here, that the idea of the unknown. Yeah, the silent shape. And then this as well, look. But Scrooge was worse for this. It thrilled him with uncertain horror. So the idea that this, you know, he can't kind of walk, but then this thing is trying to help him, freaked him out, because then he realised that it can see him. It's got eyes that are watching him, but he can't see the eyes. You know, if someone texts you saying, I can see you, and then you move and they say, you moved to blah, 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 it's going to freak you out because you can't see them, but they can see you. Yeah, this kind of all-watching eye. Context, just like a god. Yeah, this all-seeing thing that watches everything. So because the ghost isn't really speaking and all it's doing is referencing, it makes us focus structurally on the dialogue from Scrooge and from other characters that we're going to see in the stave. So at this point it says, Ghost of the future, he exclaimed, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. It comes back to this thing of the future is unknown. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah? You never know which breath is going to be your last. You never know anything about the future. Nothing is certain. If someone had asked you 12 months ago, what is 2020 going to be like? I guarantee you would not have said this. At least with the past and the present, Scrooge, even unconsciously, would know what is coming. But with the future, he's got no idea. He's got no control over the situation. He can't kind of mitigate it for himself. He can't soften the blow because he knows that he's going to see Belle, because he knows that he's going to see his employees or whatever it is. Now, after this entire little bit from Scrooge, we get this line here, look. It gave him no reply. Think about the simple syntax of that. It gave him no reply. The verb there, that giving, the idea of a gift, the idea of a present, he's not getting anything like that this time. He's not getting anything from the ghost except references and just the ability to see into the future. There's no explanation. It's not gifting him anything except that. It gave him no reply. Simple, short syntax. I think this as well is kind of microcosmic of Scrooge's own kind of job to change himself. His role and his own change is represented in that one little quote, that it gave him no reply. It's no longer about the ghost. If you remember before, we talked about how, Dickens had structured it so that it was just kind of reported that, he said something along these lines, because it was important what the ghost was going to say. Because we need to learn about his past, and that the past has an impact on the future and on the present. And now, that's kind of swapped, where now we're not focusing on what the ghost has got to say or anything like that. It's now about what Scrooge has got to say. You've had this lesson, now it's your turn. Now then the lesson starts, and they start going through London, and they're seeing people walking up and down the streets. They're seeing just London as it is, or will be, I should say. But then it stops beside a few businessmen, and we start hearing about someone. He's dead. Yeah, there's kind of vague pronouns there. He's dead. When did he die? Now, we as readers, we can probably work out that it's Scrooge that they're referencing. But the language stays ambiguous, because it's almost as if we're kind of seeing it through Scrooge's eyes. Yeah? That we are experiencing it like him, and he hasn't quite worked it out yet. But at this one, look. Someone says, what was the matter with him? So they've heard that this person's died. Scrooge, we can imagine. And this person says, why, what was the matter with him? And he says, God knows, said the first with a yawn. Yeah, think about that prepositional phrase there, with a yawn. That even the death of this kind of person who thinks he's a great businessman, basically, Scrooge prides himself on his business. And even businessmen are still going, oh, God knows what happened to him. I don't know. They don't really care. They're not interested. It's almost like it's just a pointless existence. That you've done all this stuff in your life, Scrooge, and yet now, when you're apparently dead, you don't have an effect on anyone. No one sees kind of a point in your existence. What was the point of your life? What meaning did you create for yourself? Now, then we get a few kind of jokes about Scrooge. People say it's likely to be a very cheap funeral, and someone jokes, "Oh, I don't mind if lunch is provided. I'll go for the food." They're not going for him if they're going to go at all, which they aren't. Yeah, they're kind of joking about it. This person's just died, and they're joking about it because he meant nothing to them at all. It's completely neutral. Then we get kind of a sad bit of dialogue here. This person says, I'm the most disinterested among you after all, for I never wear black gloves and I never eat lunch, but I'll offer to go if anybody else will. When I come to think of it, I am not at all sure that I wasn't his most particular friend, for we used to stop and speak whenever we met. So this person kind of sees himself that I think he thinks I was his best kind of closest friend, because we actually used to stop and speak whenever we saw each other. How depressing is that? Think about that verb there, look. The phantom gliding onto the street. Inhuman. It's not natural. It's supernatural. Yeah? We can't glide. We have to walk. We stomp. But gliding implies something beyond what humans can do. Or what mortals can do. Now again, the finger is pointing, and we learn that Scrooge knows these people. He says, they were men of business, very wealthy and great importance. He had made a point of always standing well in their esteem. In a business point of view, that is. So Dickens sets up this scene by saying Scrooge had always tried to seem like a good man to these people and to seem like a great man of business in front of these people. And then this is how this exchange goes down. So have that in mind, and then this is how it goes down. How are you? Said one. How are you? Returned the other. Well, said the first, old Scratch has got his own at last, eh? So I'm told, returned the second. Cold, isn't it? Seizing him off Christmas time. You're not a skater, I suppose. No. They've moved on. Scrooge literally got... Old Scratch has got his own at last, hey? And then, so I'm told. That's it. And Scrooge consciously says that he always tried to look good for these people. And yet when he's dead, that's it. That's all he gets. Again, it's as if it's a pointless existence. Now, as we go down, again, Scrooge is not quite clicking with what's happened or what's going on. And, you know, he sees the conversations as trivial, that they don't seem important. It's kind of irrelevant knowledge. Why are you showing me this? He's listening because he knows he should, because the ghost is showing it to him. So it must be important, and it must have some hidden purpose, as it says, but he sees it as trivial. He doesn't understand why. Why am I listening to this? I don't get it. He's not clicking that it's about him yet. Now then we get another interesting little quote here, look. But nothing doubting that to whomsoever they applied, they had some latent moral for his own improvement. So think about that he is saying, oh, well, these must be for my journey. I must listen to what they say, and I've got to learn something from it. He's missed the point. He is completely unaware that it's now about a journey of self-awareness, and that actually his own lack of awareness means that he doesn't realize it's about him. And he's trying to make it, oh, I need to put that in my pocket because that little quote's going to come in handy later on. Instead of realizing, no, that this is about your death and this is about you. Yeah, he's so ignorant of the facts. And as we saw in Stave 3, you know, ignorance and want are kind of the two metaphors that the Ghost of Christmas Present showed Scrooge, and something that he really should be thinking about right now. It's like Scrooge is kind of waiting for the overt stuff, the really obvious stuff. Here is your moral lesson. Here you go. Write it down. Lovely. Yeah, it's kind of like these. Like when I've spoken to you guys, it's been some ideas, but you should also take your own things from it. And you should also kind of think about other things that I'm not talking about or disagree with me. Yeah, it's not just listening to what one thing is saying. We also learn what Scrooge was expecting or hoping from this. It gave him a little surprise, however, for he had been revolving in his mind a change of life, and thought and hoped he saw his newborn resolutions carried out in this. He was hoping that this experience would be him viewing how much better life would be now, and him looking into the future and seeing just how amazing now life is now that you've learned this stuff from the past, instead of realizing that actually this is about if you don't change your ways, that this is what is going to happen. And it's really drilling it home for him. We also get this personification here, look, of the unseen eyes. Think about that in terms of context as well. That he's personified the eyes of this being that's kind of guiding him through this journey. Contextually, think about the role of God. Again, that these unseen eyes are always watching, and yet it's this kind of living, not living, but this existence, this thing that is there, observing. And then we go into a different side of London, kind of a more macabre side, a more basically negative side of it. You know, it talks about the obscure, the foul, the cesspools, the alleyways, the archways, the drunken, the ugly, the disgorged, the straggling, crime, filth, misery, the real kind of deprived side of London. And we're probably wondering as well, why is Scrooge being taken here? But Scrooge, you can imagine how confused he would be. But also, again, he's aware the unseen eyes are watching him, and he would just follow along. He just goes with it. Now we get this, look, a den of infamous resort. Yeah, infamous, famous for the wrong reasons. Yeah, So Hitler is infamous, for example. Again, we get this whole description about just how awful this place is. Yeah. And kind of the really dark, the really kind of deprived, the depths of depravity in terms of semantic field. We see the ring kind of, kind of a trade-in shop where you go in and people give you loans or they give you cash for, stuff that you have. It goes on quite a bit about this, and it's, not as important for our understanding. But as long as you understand that, that's kind of key. Now, we see kind of a reference to Scrooge, that every person has the right to take care of themselves. He always did. And we're wondering, what are they talking about? How are they taking care of themselves? And why are they referencing Scrooge? So they've gone in with kind of, buttons and cutlery and spoons and stuff. Again, we assume from Scrooge's house. So we're seeing maybe not the level of respect that Scrooge would want about his death. But it gets even worse for him. If we go down, look, he says, again, there's a whole kind of hullabaloo about it. And he says, "What do you call this? Bed curtains." He says, "Bed curtains. You don't mean to say you took him down, rings and all, with him lying there," said Joe. People are basically grave robbing at this point. Scrooge is on his bed, again, we assume, dead, and the bed curtains that surround his bed, people are nicking. People are stealing to go and sell. Think how little you must respect or even care that they exist of the person who is literally dead on the bed while you are stealing their things. One, it does also show the poverty at the time, so context. But two, the disdain and the complete lack of connection to this person as even a human being. It's almost as if Scrooge isn't human at this point. Yeah? Really, really kind of strong symbolic statement there. Now, again, as we go down, kind of there's more things that are taken. But I think the bed curtains is a really key one to think about there. It says, look here, Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror. They sat about their spoil, as in it's almost like a treasure hunt, and they've gone and kind of purged some evil thing of its riches, which is kind of how Dickens is painting it, to be fair. Marley told him earlier that mankind is my business. It's Scrooge's business as well, that he deals in people, not just money. And he's now kind of thinking, well, they're marketing the corpse itself. Well, actually, that's kind of what he was doing too. And look, the last thing he hears from these people is just laughing. She's laughing here. He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive to profit us when he was dead. Ha ha ha. And they're laughing as he leaves the scene. Not a nice thing to hear, that people, after you're dead, are laughing, I think one of the things that people kind of don't like about death is the idea that you're at this party and then someone taps you on the shoulder and says, not just that the party's over, but the party's going on and you've got to leave. Now, if that was the case, if that analogy was kind of the case, then you would hope that people at the party were going, "Oh, I do miss blah, blah, blah. They were a good person." Instead of going, "Ha ha ha, isn't it great we can now profit of this person who's had to leave the party?" We then see that the scene's changed and we see a bare, uncurtained bed on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay something covered up, which, though it was dumb, announced itself in awful language. This is such a good quote, I think, because language is communication, and communication does not have to be these written symbols, all these little symbols that we see as letters. Even though it was dumb, even though it made no noise, it made no sound, it announced itself in awful language. Scrooge couldn't help but kind of hear this thing calling to him almost, that it was speaking to him, communicating with him, because he's starting to think this is maybe closer to home. And obviously we have probably worked out by now that under that sheet is Scrooge's dead body. And now present Scrooge is watching his future death and how little people care about him. We should also note as well that this is one long, multi-clausal, complex syntax. Yeah, the sentence structure is one long thing. It's almost as if, just like Scrooge kind of going into the scene, looking around, noticing the sheet, noticing what's under it. It's all kind of one thing that happens. He doesn't go into the room and go, "Oh, okay, Oh, we're in a room. Oh, there's a thing on the bed. It's got a sheet. It's like it's one process of kind of entering the room and then suddenly he feels it. It was almost like one movement, just like the one sentence kind of guiding us through. Now, again, we're getting this dark semantic feel, the idea of the anxiety to know what room it was. Was it his own room, for example? The pale light, the unwept and uncared for, the body of this man. It wasn't just the man there, but the body, the meat, the flesh almost. Yeah, just that. Nothing else, nothing important. Now, as we go down, we see this one here, look. O cold, cold, rigid, dreadful death, that set up thine altar here, and dress it with such terrors as thou hast at thy command, for this is thy dominion. Dickens is personifying death here, and he's using an extended metaphor around death, and it's almost a callback to Stave 1 as well, with dead as a doornail, that we need to really understand that this person is dead. Yeah, if you remember, Marley was dead to begin with is the first thing we ever hear in Christmas Carol. And now we've kind of returned back to it that not only is Marley dead, but now in this version of the future, Scrooge is also dead. And it talks about this whole thing that kind of outlines the fact that he is dead, and we need to understand that, and so does Scrooge. And so this is going through Scrooge's mind now. Okay? He's starting to think about it. He's still probably in denial, but he's starting to recognize it. He's so desperate to see that this is the good Scrooge as well. Is this a future where I changed or not? And he asks the shadow to strike almost at his mind. He wants the phantom to kind of to hit the body so that all the good deeds could kind of spurt out of it, and he could see that it was a good future for him. Except the fact that it isn't. This is not a good future for Scrooge. This is one where no change has happened. Now, as all this happens, again, we continue with the dark, the emptiness. We also see this, it's kind of a bit gross, but a cat was tearing at the door, and there was a sound of gnawing rats beneath. And then it says what they wanted in the room of death, and why they were so restless and disturbed, Scrooge did not dare to think. The animals, the animals are just going to eat him. He's not going to be buried properly, he's not going to be cremated, it's not going to be a good thing, he's just going to be left there to rot, and the animals will come in and feast on his flesh, basically. Not a nice idea of imagining how you would be treated after your death. Yeah? It's getting really, really dark now. Now, the ghost still is pointing at the head, as if you need to go and uncover it and see that it is you. But Scrooge says, I have not the power. Okay? That's where I'm going to leave it for this one. So, any questions, let me know, and I'll see you soon. Bye.